The theme of Roman's talk today is, do I have cognitive impairment? Thank you, Roman.
Tanya was noticing that she was having trouble remembering things. She was making a lot of mistakes at work, and she felt like her memory was just a little bit fuzzy. She was forgetting appointments, and she would actually miss things that were really important that she was looking forward to. She began to wonder what was wrong with her. One day when, after a stressful phone call, she was having trouble even finding her block, the street that she lived on. She was driving around in circles, wondering what is wrong with my brain. She went online and she started to research. And she came across this term, cognitive impairment. And as she read through the symptoms, people who are forgetting things and missing appointments and losing their train of thought, she realized, wow, this describes exactly what I am going through. I must have cognitive impairment. And so for a moment, it made her feel good to know that there was some term for this, that now she would have some way to understand her experience and what she was going through. But as Tanya kept reading, it started to become very bleak. It would appear that mild cognitive impairment, as it's called, is a precursor for dementia and Alzheimer's. And as she kept reading, she started to think, oh my goodness, I am doomed. If I have cognitive impairment now, and I'm only in my 30s, almost 40, I'm not going to have much hope by the time I'm in my 50s. Maybe you've had a similar experience like this as you started to research different things that you were going through. You may have come across a title, a label that seems to describe what it is you have, and it feels good for a moment to know that there is a title for what you have. But then when you start to go further, you realize that the professional who diagnosed you or Google doesn't have the solutions as readily as it has a name for what you're experiencing. And so it can be nice to have certain labels, but if we're not careful, those labels can actually be debilitating. For instance, when we talk about this term cognitive impairment, cognitive means thoughts, impairment means the weakening of. So that term basically implies that you have a weak mind or a weak brain, and it's just getting weaker. And it sounds chronic. And that becomes very scary as we learn that this is a precursor to worse ailments later on in life. We don't want to lose our minds, and we begin to wonder, does this mean that we're losing our minds? But I'd like for you to take a look for a moment with me at the symptoms of cognitive impairment and see if you can relate to some of these symptoms. It says, you forget things more often, you miss appointments or social events, you lose your train of thought, or you can't follow the plot of a book or a movie. You have trouble following a conversation. You find it hard to make decisions. You find it difficult to finish a task. You find it difficult to follow instructions. You start to have trouble finding your way around places you know well. You begin to have poor judgment. Your family and friends begin to notice these changes. And you also may experience depression, anxiety, a short temper and aggression, a lack of interest. Does this sound familiar? Probably it does. Because all trauma survivors are facing these symptoms, or at least some of them. In fact, you'll notice that these symptoms are a great match for ADHD. And so you begin to wonder, well, wait a second. What is it? Do I have cognitive impairment or do I have ADHD? But then when we learn about ADHD, we realize that these symptoms are a great match for complex trauma. So it's like, well, what is it here? And then they're saying anxiety, depression, But these symptoms that we experience, most people who experience anxiety and depression are also having problems in these areas as well. So what are we really dealing with here, right? Is it ADHD? Is it cognitive impairment? Is it borderline personality disorder? Well, what we know is the base of all mental health issues virtually is trauma. Now, of course, there are exceptions where there's an actual physical condition that is causing impairment in the brain or the mind. You can have a physical disease or have been in a physical accident that's causing impairment of the mind, and that will affect your mental health. But generally, what we find is that trauma is the thread that pulls all of things together. And what happens when we go into Google or WebMD these labels, we can miss that it's not just an imbalance or something you're born with. This neurological condition is not a chronic disease. You are going through something. You are experiencing something. You are traumatized. So when you read cognitive impairment, be careful, because it's making you feel like and think you're just doomed and you're locked in to this really detrimental, inescapable situation. But none of that is true. You are traumatized. Or you might be experiencing a trauma right now. Did you notice in Tanya's situation, when she really had trouble finding her way home, was after she got a really disturbing phone call? She was going through something. And so it doesn't serve her well to go through that situation and then say, well, wow, I'm losing my mind because I can't find my way home. Tanya can't find her way home because Tanya's going through something. You're having trouble with your memory and your focus because your brain is either adapted from trauma, or in the very moment it's adapting, trying to cope with traumatic situations that you're going through right now. So in reality, it's not that your brain is broken. It's responding exactly as it should respond when someone goes through a situation like you have been through. Let's not minimize your trauma. Trauma is anything that's distressing, that causes an undesirable change. Some of us have been through multiple distressing events, but everyone's been through some type of potential trauma in their life. And so we're all affected by these traumas in various ways. So instead of taking yourself and categorizing yourself as if to put yourself in a box or a bin and put a lid on it and be like, oh, you know what? That's me. I just have that title. I want you to go back in that bin and pull yourself out and bring yourself into this worldwide family of people who are trying to cope with adverse circumstances. Be a part of this worldwide family of people who are going through something. You are not alone and you are not broken. Your brain is supposed to adapt and find ways to cope and strategize to keep you safe. It's supposed to dissociate from negative situations that are uncomfortable and traumatizing. It's supposed to do that. It's supposed to block out memories that are too much for a person to handle. It's supposed to do that. You're responding the way you're supposed to respond. You are not broken. And I'm telling you that because it does not serve you well to believe that you are broken. Oh, well, you know, it's just my ADHD, so I'm disabled, because that's a disability. What you're experiencing, the symptoms of your ADHD, of your cognitive impairment, whatever you want to call it, they're real. The symptoms are real, but the label is made up. The label is just a way for experts to say, hey, we're seeing a commonality in multiple people and we're going to call it this. That's all. It's a way of categorizing something. Don't make it more than it is. Because what happens, what we do when we take those labels is we say, oh, you know what? This is what I am, and now I'm boxed in. And so now that we have a label for it, we no longer work on it. So you could be proverbially like the person who's got a food crusted onto their floor. And then once they create a name for it, oh, that's Bill. That's my little food spot on the floor. They never do anything about it. And so it gets harder and harder and dirtier and collects more and more grime and dust. The better way to handle the food encrusted on the floor is to say, I don't like that. That's not desirable. And to take action with chemicals and water and a brush and put the elbow grease in and scrub at it, work at it. Ooh, this is hard, but it's looking cleaner already. Scrub it, and it's starting to shrink. And I got to work at it. And next thing you know, it's gone. That's how you take care of food encrusted on the floor. That's also how you take care of the impairments of the mind. Anything in your brain that's miswired or messed up, all neurologists agree the brain is amazing in its capacity to change. You have neuroplasticity. If you have a brain, even part of your brain, you have neuroplasticity, the ability to change, to mold, to grow. So don't label your brain. It doesn't work like that. With certain physical ailments, it's good to have a direct label for those ailments. But be careful over labeling something that's happening in your brain, because we can change those things, especially when we talk about the mind itself. People don't understand the mind because the mind is, as Wikipedia calls it, a faculty of mental phenomena, whatever that means. So they don't know what the mind is. But I am telling you, the mind is a gift. It is the operating system for your supercomputer. Your supercomputer is your brain. The mind is the operating system of the brain. You must learn how to use your operating system. You are to be the command center of your operating system. You, the conscious person. If you think that you have the symptoms of cognitive impairment, what you need to do is just strengthen your executive function. That's the solution. You just have to strengthen your executive function. It's very important that we understand things the way they are. That's a spot on the floor. I need to scrub at it. I'm having trouble with my memory. I need to work on that. I'm having trouble remembering things. I need to work on that. I'm having trouble concentrating. I need to work on that. You have to work at it. You have to put the work in, the scrubbing in, to minimize it until next thing you know, oh, wow, this is a non-issue now, because your brain has the ability to change. Labels can be dangerous. There's a research done in UK where they took 250 clinicians. These are professionals in mental health. And they had them all watch a video. But they took one group of clinicians and they said, the person in this video, and they all watch the same video, by the way, and the person in the video is just explaining the symptoms of anxiety. That's all the person's doing in the video. So these 250 clinicians are all watching a person explain the symptoms of anxiety. But one group of the clinicians were told, this person has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Okay, here's the video. The clinicians that were told that the person they were watching in the video had BPD all came up with a more grave and severe prognosis for that client. They all felt the symptoms were more severe than the people who watched the same video but were never told that there was a label. That's how effective a label is at changing the perspective of even mental health professionals. So how much more so when you're dealing with yourself, is it important not to overly rely on labels to put a name on what you're going through? You're just going through something. You're overcoming trauma. Your brain may be traumatized, but now we have to do the work. Scrub at it, and fix it. I like, as an analogy, the muscles of the human body, because not unlike the brain, if there's parts that we don't use, those parts can become weaker. So if your executive function is weak, labeling it as, oh, I have the ADHD, or I have cognitive impairment, so all well, that's not going to strengthen your executive function. So it will continue to be weak. If you don't use your executive function, it will get weaker and weaker and weaker. However, when you put the effort in to work on a muscle that is weak, you can strengthen it. Well, how do you strengthen a muscle that's weak? Pumping that iron, lift. You have to keep challenging the muscle. You have to keep challenging the muscle. And then what happens over time, it gets stronger. Does it feel great right away? Oh, no. Have you ever worked a muscle? It feels awful the first time you do it because it's awkward. The weight is heavy. And then after you're done, the muscle's sore. You're like, oh my gosh, this is awful. I got so much pain in my muscle. I hate this. But then after a couple weeks of that, when you look in the mirror, oh yeah, you don't hate that. Now you see the results. You're like, oh wow, is that me right there? I love this. Yeah, and then you're motivated to work on other muscles in your body. Like now I need to work over here. I'm going to trim this up, and you're motivated. Why are you motivated? Because you're seeing results. Why are you seeing results? Because you put in the work. Does it work like that for the brain? You know it does. If you go to see professionals for your mental health, look at what their business model is. Because if their business model is, we help people to manage symptoms, then they're going to help you to manage the symptoms. That is, help you to just continue to live with the same problem. But if you go to professionals whose business model is, oh, we're going to help you to overcome this, we're going to help you to recover from this, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to overcome it. You're going to recover from it. Why? Because it's mindset. Like in David's situation, David is a man, he travels the world talking about how he speaks worldwide. He talks about how when he had the labels, it held him back. But when he didn't focus so much on the labels, because he had OCD, and it was bad. He was washing his hands with super hot water and going back to his apartment and checking all the time. But he never knew that was a mental health issue. And so he goes to some people for some help. And the people that he went to for help never labeled him as having a chronic mental condition. Instead, the people he went to said, oh, actually, we are working on a system that we're developing to help people who deal with this. And so we'll be able to help you too. They had the expectation that he would get better. And so as a result, David said, okay, great. So he had the expectation that he would get better. So he went in and did the work and he does these exercises with these people. And guess what happens? David got better. He overcame his OCD. Well, how? Obsessive compulsive disorder is a chronic condition. You can't recover from that. Well, if that's your expectation, then typically what you expect, you will find. But in David's case, his expectation, he said, my expectation was always that I would recover. And therefore I did. So be careful not to box yourself in with the labels and the diagnoses that you've been given. So how can you overcome? How can we strengthen our executive function? Because that's what we have to do. If we notice we got impairment, which is weakening of the thinking abilities, right? How do we overcome and strengthen the executive function? The executive function, for those who don't know, is your ability to control yourself. It's self-control. That's executive function. It's a function of your operating system, the mind. We get stronger executive function when we use it a lot. So how do we strengthen the executive function? Well, we got to exercise self-control. We got to exercise impulse control. We got to exercise memory strengthening. We got to exercise executive function. That word executive, that always makes me think of a guy in a business tie walking around, right, in an office, and everyone's got suits on. When I think executive, I think business. And I think that's a great analogy for what we have to do for our mind. You need to run your mind like a business. Yes, be a professional. Why not? What's more important than your mind? Why would you approach your mind with anything less than the utmost of professionality and integrity and intention. It is your mind. So run your mind like a business, and you are the executive. You are the CEO. You are the boss, the leader of your department. Okay. So you look at yourself, you make yourself into a little company. Okay. My company is going to be the company of Roman. And so I show up each day, like as a business. I wake up, take a look at my calendar. Let's see what's on the calendar. It doesn't matter if I know I have nothing scheduled. It's a habit. It's a way that I train my mind to never miss appointments, or at least to miss fewer appointments, because I have a habit of checking the calendar. If that's coupled with a habit of putting things in the calendar, well, now we're firing on all cylinders. It's executive function. It's a strong executive function. It's building the habit of getting up and looking at the calendar. Because why? I'm running my mind like a business. Right. And so when somebody gives me an appointment, you don't have to miss the appointment, because you make the habit of doing what? Putting it into your electronic calendar, and set timers, set alarms, right? So get the alarms going on many of these calendars. You can set an alarm to ring 1 hour before, 1 day before, whenever you know you need the reminder, set the calendar. Is that cheating? No. That's what people who don't believe they have cognitive impairment do. People who say, oh, I have a great memory. Oh, really? Do you use an electronic calendar? Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Or a handwritten calendar? Oh, yes, absolutely. Definitely use a calendar. Why? You have a great memory. Why? Because everyone forgets things. That's why. So instead of stigmatizing it when you do it and getting down on the self and saying, oh, wow, there I go again. That must be my cognitive impairment. Don't do that. Executive function. If you miss an appointment, you say, okay, what do we got to do so that we don't do this again? That's what you do if you're an executive. Run your mind like a business. What other issues do you run into? So let's say you're someone who forgets things often. So you want to change that. What do? Well, what do executives do? They record everything. They got the tape recorder out at the meetings. They're typing and taking notes. They record. Why? So they don't forget. So they have a record. Is it because they have impairment? No. They don't believe they have impairment because they don't lose or forget things. And they don't lose or forget as many things because they're recording everything. So you just do the same thing. Record everything. Get your tape recorder. Your phone's got the recording app. That thing can just go all day. I've tried it. Doesn't even use up a lot of battery. You can just have some of these apps will run in the background, just recording everything. So you can go back and say, I need to go back and figure out what was said, what we were doing about that meeting, such and such. Record everything, take notes on everything, and you will start forgetting things less. Another thing is you need to assign emotion to things that you don't want to forget. Your mind naturally lets go of things that it categorizes as unimportant. Probably part of the reason you forgot is because it may have gotten categorized in the brain as unimportant. Not because you have a chronic brain disease. You don't. It's because you need to strengthen the muscle and strengthen the executive function by acting like an executive, by building the habits and the skills. What's another example? Something you might be going through. Let's say you lose your train of thought a lot of times. Or you can't follow the plot of a book or a movie. If you notice that when you're talking, you lose your train of thought, what you're doing is you're not focusing and being present in the moment. So you need to practice speaking slowly, deliberately, and pausing before you speak. Meditation will help you to stay centered, on track. Meditation is exercise for the mind. It's digestion for the mind. It's utilizing the mind. I'm not talking about meditation where we try to clear the mind. Don't do that. Use the mind. Build strength in the mind. We need a strong mind. So use meditation to help you to not lose your train of thought. Right? So if I just take my time and then I bring in a notepad on top of that, like, I have notes in front of me, right? Of course. Why? So I don't lose my train of thought. It's not cheating. This is what anyone who does not believe they have cognitive impairment do, because they perform like an executive. They run their mind like a business. Why would I come to this meeting without notes? I don't want to lose my thought, right? It's that simple. You don't lose your thought and then say, oh, there it is. I'm just a worthless, no good, cognitively impaired, poor excuse for a human. Don't do that. That doesn't help you get better. Run it like a business. So get your notepad, take notes as you're talking, so you know exactly, oh, and you know what, I want to say this next, and talk and stay on your notes and pause and be deliberate, be concise, meditate. You won't lose your train of thought. If you're having trouble focusing on a book or a movie, think about it for a moment. Why are you reading that book or watching that movie? Stop. If I'm trying to read a book or I'm trying to watch a movie and it's not holding my attention, I'm going to turn off the TV. I'm going to close up the book. I'm going to go do something that's more interesting to me. Do that. Even if you're with a partner and you're watching a movie together and you've gone in 30, 40 minutes and you can't follow the plot of the movie, say to your partner, you know what? I don't think this is the right movie for me. I'm going to go sew or do something that's fun for me. If you want, you can come, or if you want, we can try another movie, but you can keep watching. I don't want to ruin your thing. Tell your partner that. Don't be nice and pleasing. Oh, I'll just sit here and keep asking questions. No, you don't. You're not following. So don't keep putting yourself in that situation. It's like we're being bullies of our own minds. We're like, here, come on. Oh, you need to read this, get this, watch this. Stop it. If it's not working, maybe it's an indication that it's failing to hold your interest. Maybe the movie's just not good enough, just not interesting enough, or just not interesting to you. So maybe you need to pick something else to do. If it's for school and you just have to do it, find the workaround. If it's a book, watch the movie. If it's a movie, try to get the book. Whatever's not working for you, switch it up. Use workarounds. Read the book out loud to yourself in accents. Record yourself. Listen back to the recording. Buy the audiobook. Use workarounds. Ask someone else to read it who seems to be interested in it, and then have a conversation with them where they explain to you the plot, and then you can ask them questions. Use workarounds. Don't lay out defeated. There it is. I'm nothing. My brain doesn't work. I'm doomed. Don't do that. It doesn't help. Your mind, your subconscious mind is designed to be obedient to you. If you tell it, hey, I'm broken, I'm impaired, I can't do it, it says, oh, okay, and it stops trying. So give it information that's really going to be helpful. Tell it, I can do this. We got this. Let's figure out a way. Let's figure out a workaround. Your brain works different. You're not chronically diseased. If you find it hard to make decisions or finish tasks or follow instructions, what can you do to overcome that? If you're having trouble making decisions, use a weighted chart, right? It's a way of journaling out what's going on. Bam, line down the middle. You put one choice over here, the other option there. Most decisions come down to either or. Either I do this or I do that. So you got option A, you got option B, and then a weighted chart works on going by all of the reasons why you would do this, all of the reasons why you would do that, and then assigning a number 1 through 5, 5 being this is very weighty or important to me, and 0 being this doesn't matter to me, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 respectively. And then you assign a value to each one, and you ask yourself, now how important is this one to me? And how important is this reason to me? And how important is this reason to me, right? And then you add up each side, and you realize, like, if this one adds up to 10 and this one adds up to 3, it's like, oh, wow, I think I know which option I want. I want option A. And make your decision. It's a meditative process. It's called a weight chart. Meditate, pray, make the decision that you believe is best, and let go of regret. Because your job now, once you've made a decision, is to stick with your choice and live with the consequences. Sometimes we get caught because we're afraid. Well, if I go this way, I'm afraid. If I go that way, I'm afraid. Don't be fear-based. Make your decision, be intentional, run it like a business. We got stuff to do. So we're going to have to make a decision here. What we're going to do, I've analyzed all the data. I've made my weighted chart. Bam, let's go. We're doing this. And we got to live with the consequences because that's what it is. We are adults. We're living in the real world. It is what it is. I make my decision and I stick by it. That's it. Have that attitude. Believe in yourself. Believe in your ability to be that executive, right? If you're having trouble finishing tasks, what can you do? Well, first of all, don't take on too much. But if it's something that's in your capability to handle, then you can finish the task, but you got to focus on the task and you'll focus on what you care about. So you need to assign care, emotion to the task that you're doing. You have to make the task something you're truly interested in, something you're truly invested in, and you will finish the task. If you're not interested in the task, then you're going to have a lot of trouble finishing the task. It's really that simple. It's just an interest thing. So something that you might use is timers to finish the task. You say, okay, I got this amount of time to attack this task. So that's it. I have to get it done in 5 minutes. I got to get this done in 3 minutes. I got 1 hour. And you pretend like you're on a game show or that something's going to happen if you don't meet your deadline and you just go, push. Sometimes when we have a task to get done, that is the moment that we're supposed to use that technique that we overuse too much of being a little tough on yourself. That is the moment we're supposed to use it. But then we don't use it when it comes to finishing a task, but we use it in all other areas. And we're like, oh, I'm going to be hard on myself. That's the only way I'll succeed. But really, all you're doing is just being a negative inner voice to the self and tearing the self down. You're actually very rarely supposed to use that. Only in the very tail end of getting an important task done or when you're pushing out that last rep in the gym, then you're supposed to use the tough voice. But you should very rarely pull that out. 85%, you got to be kind, loving, compassionate, cool with the self. And let's run our mind like we run a business. Any other things anybody having trouble with your cognitive impairment, as it is called? What if you have trouble finding your way in your own neighborhood? You're noticing you're trying to get home and you get lost in your own neighborhood. Don't say, "Oh, there it is. I'm developing Alzheimer's." There it is, because you're just commanding the brain. Do that. Give in to that. Don't do that. Say no. Say no. I can do this. I can overcome this. Our ability to act as an executive stems from the belief that we are capable. When we have a belief that we're incapable, that we're losing, then we're going to perform like we're losing. We're going to continue to lose. When you have the belief that you are capable and you are winning and you will win and you will tolerate nothing less than victory, what happens? How do you operate? You operate like a winner. You start operating like you're victorious. So depending on the situation, if you're in your car, maybe you just take a moment and take a nap. Right through my eyes for a few minutes. Calm yourself down. Manage the anxiety. If you're finding yourself lost in your own neighborhood, stop and address the anxiety first. What is bothering me? What am I distracted with? Oh, I got this whole situation. Okay, what do I got to do? I got to do the JOT method. Oh, yeah, that's right. Roman's got a whole training on the JOT method on his YouTube. Let me pull that up on my phone right now. Right now, while I'm lost in my neighborhood? Yes. Why? because you need to manage the anxiety so that you can calm the anxiety down and you can move on. You can calm your anxiety with the JOT method in 5 minutes. So use it. It's revolutionary. People didn't even know you could cure anxiety in 5 minutes, but you can if you have the tools. So believe that I can overcome this. Oh, I'm feeling upset right now. I can overcome this. I can. Start from that belief point and then manage your anxiety and then start to focus on finding your way. Utilize the tools at your disposal. Go on Google Maps, type in your address. Even when I'm 2 blocks from my house, yes. Be calm. It happens. The last thing you want to do is say, here it is. This is proof that I'm a broken human. Don't do that. Just, I don't know. I don't know what's going on right now. Laugh it off. I'm assigning passive emotion. Pull out the phone, put in the address, and it will all come to you. When you see it mapped out on it will, yeah, I know what happened. Okay. And bam, it's all right there. You can navigate walking directions on these apps now. So you just hit that navigate button and follow it. It's not that you can't find your way. It's that you're assigning too much shame to a moment, to a lapse, to a moment of forgetfulness. Don't assign the shame. Don't assign the weight. Don't assign the negative, piercing emotion to it. Just recognize, I'm capable. I can overcome this. This is funny right now that I'm having this moment. How interesting, right? And be calm. Remember, stop, be still, be thoughtful, be observant, be patient. Just stop for a second. Just stop for a second. Calm yourself. Be still, be thoughtful, be observant, be patient. And guess what? You'll figure out how to get home. You'll be able to ask for the directions. You'll go on the app. You will figure out your way. Don't be hard on yourself. Be loving to yourself. What if you're experiencing poor judgment? You're making bad decisions. Poor judgment comes from a lack of impulse control. Lack of impulse control is the same thing. It's just not utilizing executive function. How do we get impulse control or self-control? Practice the muscle of self-control. People who practice self-control know how to control the self to do whatever it is they have to do. Whether that's running a marathon or sticking to a more healthy regimen of eating. When you practice self-control, you build the muscle of self-control. Practice controlling the self. Don't give in to all of the impulses. And you'll find as a result, you're making wiser decisions. Pause. Use the rule of 7 seconds. Hopefully these tools are helpful to you. Please remember that as you believe, as you think, so you will become. So if you believe that you're just chronically ill with no hope, then that is what you will become. But if you believe that there is hope and that you're strong and that you can overcome, then you will become strong and there will be hope and you will overcome.